Hello and welcome to Hardcast, where we'll be confronting our childhood memories and solve things with a simple handshake. I'm Humphrey Erm.
And I'm Christian Claus.
Lifeline, give me Shadowman Volume 4. Fear, Blood, and Shadows. First things first. I guess I have to get this out of here. I was incredibly underwhelmed.
Okay. Had you not read it before, or?
I had, but I hadn't really remembered it so much, and that made sense if it was underwhelming. I was incredibly underwhelmed, considering just how good the first two volumes are, as we discussed.
Yeah.
It was like a nice, simple setup, let's have him fight some, evil voodoo monsters. And have some character development, along it. But I don't know, I just felt this whole volume... I don't know. It's hard to describe, but I was just like... Because it wasn't bad. It wasn't like objectively bad or anything like that. This is, just awful. But it was just so boring, I think might be the key word there.
Okay, yeah, maybe that was it. I mean, my biggest problem with this comic is I was just way too confused.
How so? I was just
constantly confused as who is who, where are they, what are they doing? Is this a dream sequence? Is this a whatever? It's I don't know. It's kind of hard because they kept on jumping around all the time,
which seems to be like a Valiant staple now.
Yeah, but the thing is not only that, but they were jumping around between timelines. They were jumping around between characters talking, like different character locations. They were jumping back and forth in the past and future, and also it didn't help much. I mean, first things first, the art is beautiful.
I had that as a separate point, so
yeah,
that's kind of like its saving grace, you could say. Yeah.
Right, the art was amazing. The colors are great, but it doesn't work in comics.
Well, how so? I'm not quite sure what you mean there. It doesn't work in comics?
It doesn't work the same way, because I kind of had a big kind of TV feel when I was reading this. And I feel like if this show, like if this would have been an episode of a TV show, I would have been totally fine and I would have been able to follow along really easily. Because there were a lot of like switches between color. Because I mean, again, I don't know if this has something to do with me or if it's just like whatever it is, but there was always a lot of like emphasis on color here, and for me, color dictates location or like a feeling, but it doesn't often change within a scene. So for me, if for example, you see a close-up of your main character and then the coloring changes, it usually means that we're going into a new time. Like now we're going to talk about his life in the past and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's getting into sepia tones and all that.
Yeah, exactly. But not, it doesn't have to necessarily be sepia tones, but, there's always those things like, like Game of Thrones is a really good example now, is that, when they're up at the wall, everything is blue. Like there's like this blue tint to it. And then of course when you're with Daenerys, it's all this like a yellow tint. And that's kind of thing, it kind of helps to show the audience where you are located. So when I'm seeing all this green and blue and then purple and red and pink and it's just constantly being thrown all over the place. Like for example, the scene where the Mambo.
Yeah, Punk Mambo.
Yeah. When she headbutts Jack, I'm like, wait, so was that now some sort of magic thing? Or like did something happen? But then they don't even talk about it. Nothing actually happened about it. So I was like, wait, so it was just a normal headbutt? And there's just all these like images and him talking to himself and going back and forth between being Shadowman and not being Shadowman and like shouting at himself that I think would work much better in film, where you could edit it so it looks like he's talking to himself. Whereas here it just feels, because I don't really think that comics or at least this one didn't really do a lot with the 180 rule that we do in film a lot. So I had kind of trouble. I don't know. I felt constantly confused when I was reading this comic, and it just really was a little bit off-putting. And I'm not sure if it's because of the comic or if it's just because of my inexperience of reading comics. Like if this is like a normal thing, but like I don't know. I mean, just like for example, when they were back in New Orleans at the beginning of the second volume of this, the second issue of this volume, when they're talking about the other Shadowmen, it has this old sepia tone. So I thought, oh, okay, so we're in the past now. Because, you know, New Orleans has old buildings. So even the new buildings, or like buildings that are still up in our time, could look like the buildings from the original Shadowman times. And especially because they're all like wearing, I mean, you can't really see the women, how they're dressed necessarily, but the first thing you see is a man with a cravat, or like a tie and suspenders and stuff like that, and it was like this black and white, somewhat sepia tone. So I was like, okay, we're in the past. And then suddenly they're talking about, then I realized that they're not in the past, and it goes back and forth, and then suddenly Jack is talking to a kid standing in like in front of a grandpa's yard, but they already had a conversation, and then suddenly they're in a forest, and he's together with that girl again, and it's just like, what is going on? Like you're literally, like you're jumping between morning and night in one page. And so it doesn't help, because again, the thing that helps with comics to differentiate these characters is like big, bold colors that you can then easily give to certain characters. When I'm looking at this, again, the art is amazing. I love looking at this. These are really nice drawings. These are really nice colors. Everything looks beautiful. But it's so confusing because I can't identify Jack most of the time. Like, especially from this jump from he's sitting in Grandpa's yard trying to figure out where he is or whatever. It's morning. He's just woken up. And then we're in the middle of the night. They don't tell us where. There's no later. This is like the only time I would actually want a caption telling me where I am. And suddenly there's this guy who looks white. I mean,
well, he is a mixed race.
Yeah, but still, like you know, you have some shots where he looks very more black than in this one. I mean, again, yeah, it might be the coloring tone, but I just don't recognize him with his, because he looks like just the typical kind of white guy in this, and I thought this was some sort of detective at first.
He actually, especially with the trench coat.
Yeah.
Or maybe not a trench coat, but it kind of looks like it at times there.
Yeah, and then honestly, suddenly there's this power that he's attacking. Yeah.
No, but honestly, to me, he kind of looks a bit like what's called the Bloodshot. Like what's called when he's not like powered up by his nanites.
Right.
That's kind of generic phase.
Exactly. And then there's this whole thing about then she suddenly has this power that she's using on him, and then it's just like, what? And then they talk, and then suddenly she's gone, and then he's in a completely new area, and he's beating on someone, but again, the color changed, so I'm not sure, did we now change in time again? Is this now another flashback? Because the flashbacks were more monochrome, and this is now also more monochrome with like a specific coloring on something. And then he's beating up some people again, and then the weirdest thing, suddenly there's this guy that we've never seen before who then rips off his face and is some sort of demon. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Who's this? What's this going on? Like, why is, like, what? And then he's talking about, like, I want to meet the Urdu or what, or like whatever he's saying. He's saying all these words, and I'm just like, what is going on? Who is this? What's going on? And then he's talking about some guy, like, then there's a panel of someone lying in bed with purple light. It's like, who is this? What does this have to do with the fight that's going on? And then he's lying there, and there's the guy, then the person in purple stands up and he becomes the Shadowman. It's just like, wait, what is, and I don't know. It's just, again,
No, I
I
get what you
couldn't.
mean. I get what you mean. I mean, for me, maybe it's because I've read it already, so I know like what's supposed to happen.
Yeah,
So, like for example, I wasn't confused by the earlier thing you mentioned with what's it called the house where you thought was like a flashback still, because they were
yeah,
mentioning. But I definitely see that the way you're describing it is like, yeah, we're kind of seeing these things about the old days, then all these very strong like monochrome color schemes for each panel. New Orleans, as you said, and well, there is a car there in the front in the first panel, so I guess it can't be too old.
yeah. But still, I mean, you don't really. I mean, I didn't notice the car at my first reading either because I just I
Yeah, no, me
saw.
neither. I just looked at it now. No, but I get that. So yeah, no, I don't really have much to. I didn't think about it, but I actually like your analysis on it because this is something I like hearing about, as well as I don't feel there's so much texts about like the actual. Because most people, I feel when they're reviewing a comic or like discussing one, they're just talking like plot points, not so much about
Yeah,
how it's actually being told, unless they did something really clever or really bad in terms of clarity.
right.
So I actually like hear how it's more about. I mean, this is just kind of like a thing when reading, like reading what's called prose.
Mm,
There's like a real analysis. Yeah, it's just the way the sentences are structured here. I mean, what's going on here? I mean, we don't find out that this
right.
is this until then, and
Yeah.
having that be done here in regards to panels and what's shown and like in context to each other around them. I don't know. I find it very interesting to listen to actually.
Yeah. Well, again, one of my biggest problems with this was then the guy with the sack.
Yeah, that confused me too.
Yeah, well, because again, part of me is just this problem because we're seeing in this comic that we're jumping back and forth all the time between the past and the future and stuff like that. And suddenly there's this black kid lying in bed, and I'm like, all right, so is this Jack? Like, because we don't know who this kid is.
There's another
I'm
black
assuming.
kid here. He can't possibly be another black character. It has to be the same one.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah, because you're constantly jumping back and forth between the time when he was a kid, the time when he wasn't a kid, when he was beating up that guy.
Exactly.
And then,
Is this a flashback to before? Like, is this how he maybe got some of that power to beat up his bully?
yeah,
Or
yeah, and again, you see then that the drug dealer or whoever who then pulled off his face and became that monster. And then I'm like, oh, is that like how we're supposed to find out like who he is more? But then nope, it just like nope, we're just gonna leave and actually do nothing. And I don't know, it was just so confusing, this whole thing. Again, I think it could have been much more clear as a TV show, because I think you have then more nuances of showing like when things are, and I think it really helps with having like actors who you recognize immediately.
well, this is also one of those things we have discussed a bit, which is the trickiness with having what's called. First of all, having a somewhat realistic art style, for most of these superhero comics,
Yeah,
as well as switching artists around. Unless the characters have a very distinct look, which is again kind of hard when you're supposed to be fictional people and supposed to be realistic humans.
yeah,
But unless you have something very specific for them, it's kind of hard to tell between artists. Like, okay, is this supposed to be this guy or?
yeah. And that's why I was saying that this art style, it's kind of like a double-edged sword here, because I mean, in one side, yes, it's really good, it looks beautiful, it looks amazing, but I can't differentiate many of the characters because I think this would work really well as like a like a indie comic about specific characters. Like you have this handful of characters that you follow the entire way. But with this, it's just because they all look like normal humans in that sense. No one has a star on their chest that indicates that they're this person.
Archer.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So you don't have like certain things. I mean, and also the one guy, one of those arbiters that is in there, I don't understand why he constantly had to be in shadows. Like I couldn't recognize him. Sometimes he actually looked like dogs.
Well, he does have the mustache, so he's basically a tall
Right.
Dox.
Yeah, so sometimes when he was like sitting down or we didn't see his old body, I was like, wait, okay, is this now a flashback to when Dox was still around? Or they were talking about Dox and then suddenly he's there. I'm like, wait, is this now like a thing? And oh my God, it's just, yeah, I felt, I think I could have enjoyed this if I wasn't as confused with all the jumping back and forth.
So no, I get that. So, but what's called? If I might, if I might bring up one kind of a neat little thing though, done using the comic medium. So, did you notice something cool about the speech balloons?
No.
Well, you know how yes, normal white speech balloons for living characters, and then there's like the what's called inverted like black and white one for like the demons or like the
Yeah, and then like a gray one when they were talking together.
Yes, exactly. I don't know. I think that's a pretty neat little thing with talking together. That it's a downright blend, so it becomes this shade of gray.
No, that was. I mean, again, it kind of feels like once you see it, you're like, well, duh. That's everyone should be doing that. That's like such a smart. It's a smart dumb thing, you know.
Well, again, as you were mentioning, like if this was a TV show, then they would probably just do that kind of splicey thing.
Yeah, where the two characters speak at the same time.
Yeah, and you can like the echoey effect. Probably will have the echoey effect of the Loa or something, kind of like so.
Yeah. No, but I think they did that well. I mean, again, it's not a bad comic. That's what I mean is that, I still enjoyed this much more than the last Quantum and Woody that we read. I mean, I would be much more likely to buy this again and, read this multiple times than the other one, just because of the art. I mean, the art is just so phenomenal.
So that's what great, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, then the coloring, again, I mean, I said that the coloring is like, I love it and I hate it because it's just so good but so confusing.
Well, like it's basically not very. It's nice, but it doesn't really seem to be keeping account like in context with each other. Like it seems more like, okay, this looks nice for this panel, but not thinking about how the other panels on the page relate to it.
No, I think it was more like a. You have certain colors for certain themes. That's what I kind of took from it. That it was a theme thing. That, you had certain, I don't know. Let's see here. Yeah, well, for example, when he was stealing the skull to get to the witch, he, of course, everything was very yellow when he was being shot at. I mean, that was really nice. And then it went to like a green kind of mysterious, ghosty kind of thing. And blue, of course, then for the water and the rain and all that, and then green for the fog of the bayou and stuff like that. And it was really nice. Like it has like these themes and this color that you can get from it. And then of course when the sun's setting, everything's kind of blue within the orange, and it's just a beautiful coloring that we have here. But as I said, it's just a little confusing when you're switching between all these timelines. I think if this was a straight narrative, just really from point A to point B, we would have had no problems. Because then you could do as much coloring stuff as you want, and we'd still understand. Okay, we're not doing any timeline jumps here, so we don't have to assume that the color means a certain location or a certain area or a certain time. But because they did do the time stuff, yeah, kind of, yeah.
All right. So yeah, no, again, was some really nice analysis. Really liked listening.
Oh man, 20 minutes almost of just talking about how confused I was about this comic.
Well, that seems to be a pretty typical thing for what's called us during our podcast.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
All right, but since you kind of brought her up a bit earlier, and she's kind of like an important character now, thoughts on Punk Mambo?
She's okay. I'm not quite 100% sure. I was confused again, Humphrey, about why she attacked Shadowman.
Well, again, the way I see it is that she basically follows like other laws, you could say. Like she's kind of like, she is a mortal woman, but she knows like about the bigger picture. She's kind of like female Doctor Strange, I think. Like, you know, like as we worry more about like the immediate mortal stuff, she's aware of like the otherworldly spirit stuff. So for her, then when she realizes that what's called, let's see, what does she say? You brought that old rascal into my house, orphan. I'll kill you. So there's always, she has like this understanding of who this Loa is. And for her, like, you know, Yak doesn't get it. You know, he's just, well, it's just this Loa thing, you know, it's the Shadowman thing. Yeah. But for her, she has some other context about it. So that's like, you know, get out of here. So yeah, I don't know. It's also kind of interesting since she does manage to keep her own by using all this kind of witchcraft stuff, you know, mostly based on like potions and. I don't know. I like her a lot. She's kind of like a punky, what's called Dr. Mirage, you could think.
Yeah.
So, and again, she gets some like appearances later in other comics as well. So she's like, as well as she's also another new Valiant character. There was no old Punk Mambo.
Okay, cool.
So this is like their, well, I mean, rereading some of the old Shadowman, I realized that Dox and Alyssa are new characters as well. So the original Shadowman was like a loner, pretty much.
Okay.
So, but still, like, this is like a prominent, like, okay, here's a character with a distinct design and like a personality. You know, this is like, you know, you should pay attention to her. And honestly,
I thought as well that she was going to be like a one-shot character, but then. But then, as she came in at the end of the volume again, I kind of realized that nope, she's going to be here for a while.
Again, she's going to be part of a cool little arc in another like series later and stuff like that. So I like her enough. I don't think she can carry a book. So she has like an issue 0 or like a one-shot thing for her.
Yeah.
So and that's fine, but I don't know. I have trouble seeing her carry. It's always tricky with like what characters can carry a book. So, but that's how it is. So, but yeah, that was kind of like a nice and quick, you know, compared to the previous. So, but kind of in relation to what we were discussing before in terms of the sort of being a bit confused and stuff. Were you bothered with a lot of the terminology thrown around, especially with Punk Mambo bringing up?
Not necessarily Punk Mambo, but that little drug dealer guy. Yeah, he was bringing up a lot of stuff that I didn't understand, like at all. Like he was just spewing all these words and people. He was name dropping. Is it called name dropping if you don't know the people? He was just saying all these names that I didn't understand. He was like, "Oh, I walked with this guy, and I did this, and I fought that, and I want to see Urgarn or whatever his name is, or Umbra."
Yeah, no, but exactly. Like I'm looking here when he's like peeled off his skin.
Yeah.
The mysteries don't want us back, Umbra. The servants of the Loa do us.
Yeah,
the servants of the Loa do us no wanga. Met Kalfu himself, like, the master of the crossroads, cast us out. It's like, okay, yeah, I don't quite know what all this is, and I'm unsure if it was revealed before.
Yeah, exactly. I also had that feeling where I was like, did I forget something again from the last 3 volumes? Or
so, but I don't know. It just, I don't know. It just kind of feels like it was. I watched something. Right, I was watching a Let's Play of Final Fantasy 13. So, and I understood what a lot of people were complaining about that game, because that also has just a lot of terminology thrown around without you really getting what it is. So there's just a lot of like, you know, it's a fantasy sci-fi world, so it makes sense that things have weird names. But when you as an audience member is, you know, what's called, like, don't know what these things are supposed to mean, it just gets kind of confusing, even if we forgive like the very first part of the story, you could say, because okay, yeah, well, we know we're new to this, it's a mystery.
Yeah.
But even then it just gets like, oh no, it's the La Fiora Burga, or oh, it's the La Fiorga Burga, or like, wait, what's the La Fiorga Burga? I don't know what I came up with there, but
well, again, if he would have said something like, because here's this thing, if he would have just said, the mysteries don't want us back, Umbra or something like that, even just the Umbra would be enough. But
well, yeah, I mean, I managed to figure out that that's the what's called. That's the Shadowman. That's Loa's name.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. It's just that you can figure out the Umbra. You don't know what the mysteries are, but that's the thing. Because if you just get one thing that you don't understand, you're like, okay, there's this thing called the mysteries, and they don't want them back for whatever reason. But okay, I'll just accept this. But the fact that he keeps on saying all this other stuff that we don't understand, it makes us feel confused because we can't then remember the one thing. We don't like, okay, well, what is important now of this? Like, he's throwing all this stuff, like, is it all important? I can't remember all this stuff. Like, especially if it's these kind of fantasy names, or in this case, these, I'm assuming these are some sort of voodoo names, some sort of, that come back from that religion. If they don't make sense to us, it's kind of like if you're meeting a Japanese person or a Chinese person or something like that, and they say their name, we can't, like, us Europeans can't really remember them as easily if, for example, we meet someone named Jack. You know what I mean? Well, because it's a different type of name.
Exactly, it's not something. It depends. Thanks to manga and anime, I'm sure we're kind of more used to certain ones.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, like, for example,
hey, you're like that anime character.
Right, but that's what it's the thing. Like, when I meet someone new, if they tell me their name, I usually kind of think to myself, like, oh yeah, you have the same name as this other guy I know, and that's how I remember you. So when I see your face, I'll think of this other guy that I know, and then I'll know your name. But so that's what I mean is that there's so much information that we're getting from this one guy, and in like 2 speech bubbles, where we're like, I can't like pick the information that I need to remember. So if you would have just said that the mysteries don't want us back, we'll be like, okay, the mysteries, I'll remember that because it's probably the important thing that he wants to say, because it's going to happen, something later is probably going to happen where the mysteries come and are like annoyed that whatever they got back. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, no.
So, yeah. No,
I agree. It's just a little bit too much there. So I have one other thing here too that I'm not sure if this is me being insensitive to the plights of people of the African persuasion.
The African persuasion.
It's like that. So not as fun as the Asian persuasion because it's more rhymey, but.
All right, let's get this over with.
No, but that whip that woman Avatar had. Again, it sounds okay. This isn't the insensitive part I meant, but kind of cool idea.
Yeah.
Very creepy and horrible.
Yeah.
But my main thought when that came up, it was just kind of, why was this brought up in this volume? Because it felt like, okay, this is like a very racially charged, item. Like, it's an interesting concept. Mm-hmm. But race hasn't been an issue throughout this whole volume. Or this series, really, except for...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, the whole series hasn't been really a race
thing.
The
closest we got was in the first volume a little bit when those 2 cops who were actually possessed by Mr. Twist.
Yeah.
That was like the closest we got. Oh, come on, man. So let's, check this out. Let's grab them. And that only lasted a few panels before we realized, oh wait, crap, they're not just racist cops. But I was kind of like, again, a cool, interesting idea. Honestly, like for me, and I'm not sure if this is insensitive, but if this was like an RPG or something, I'd be like, oh, I wonder what the stats of that would be.
Oh, Jesus, dude.
No, but like maybe it has like some kind of life drain, like it drains your health as you use it, but it's like really powerful.
But only if you're black. Or of what was it? Of the African diaspora.
So yeah, something like that.
But I really like that, actually. I really like the idea. Or, I mean, I don't... God damn it.
You know what I mean? It's that kind of
No.
stuff. It's not that we like the whole cons, it's not that we think it's a good thing, but it's
but what I liked about it was... Yeah, but what I liked about it was that line that she said...
Oh, not let another white man hold it.
Yeah, I really liked that. And not only that, but I love the idea, because I didn't realize it while she was using the weapon, but when... Alyssa came in and then like grabbed it, and she said that it hurt her. And I realized basically that it was also hurting the other woman. I was like, oh, because that's the thing. I mean, that's like a good thing, because basically, not only are you using this weapon to hurt someone, you're hurting yourself in the process. So it's not like a power thing. You know, you're kind of cutting your own flesh in order to hurt someone else, which a white person would then not feel the effects of it. You know what I mean? So there's some sort of poetry in that, but I'm just not. I guess I'm not. I'm not. I can't really tell you why I feel that it's so poetic, and I can't really explain it. But I feel it's so interesting, this idea that someone's hurting themselves in order to hurt someone else for the greater good, or at least what they think is the greater good.
No, but I get that. I mean, that's. I mean, in this case, it's a bit more. There's more layers to it. But it's, if you think of like a lot of anime battles, you know, they have this secret forbidden technique. You know, that, you know, will kill them if they use it, but they have to use it because that's the only way to beat this character or something, this villain. But my only point with it was that it just didn't seem. I don't know, it felt like this would have been something if there was more of a racial element in the previous volumes. Like if there had been some kind of thing about maybe Yak having a what's called kind of what's the word? Not crisis of faith, but because he's mixed race, maybe some kind of issue there. Like he's not sure what he identifies as, or something else about more of a racist villain or something like that. You know, if the element that's been in the comics, then this feels like it would have been part of it in some sense. But it's like, okay, it's just a supernatural series taking place in New Orleans, and then again, you know, it's certainly a supernatural element, but it just felt like there was a racial thing here now. Again, it's that's why I brought up the disclaimer, basically, because I'm not sure. Why do we got to talk about race? No, you know what I mean.
Ruin my comic books with racism.
No, that's
make you feel bad.
I don't
Which, you have no dog in the race anyway, so you know,
exactly.
horse in the race.
Well, you know, I was a bit upset. You know, he just wanted to help her. You know, that other abattoir, and he's like, no, you can't because you're white.
Yeah, you take the white guy's side. You're like,
hey, he was just trying to help her. You know?
Yeah, and she just bit his head off. What the hell? No, but I think it kind of works in the sense of
Yeah, no, it's not totally. I mean, if it was like a sci-fi thing suddenly, you know, that would be out of place. It just didn't really feel like it. It just kind of felt like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess this is a topic now.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's something that it can happen because that's kind of how the reality of the situation is. I mean, reality. I'm talking about a whip that was created out of skin from slaves. But, you know, the idea that, racism does creep up on you. It does just jump out at some point. I mean, it's something that just comes up. It's just like the sexism at my work as well. It's just ridiculous how we could be talking about just a non-sexist topic, and then suddenly someone says something completely sexist that's just like,
am I right, guys? Am I right?
Yeah. So I think it works in the sense of, you know, racism is a part of this world, is part of our world, and it will come up. And I don't know. It was a little bit awkward with the whole, here's this whip that I can then defeat you with. I think they could have done it a little bit differently, I guess. They could have said maybe it has to do something with people who have magic abilities or have something like that. I mean, they could have written the story whichever way. They decided to do it with racism. I don't think it's worse because of it. I think it's interesting. I think the history of it is also very powerful. So I'm okay with that. Actually, that was one of my favorite parts of the comic, actually.
All right.
The whole history of that weapon and her not allowing the white man to wield it, and, you know, getting her own pain by using it. I think it was nice. It was good.
All right. No, that's what's called. Again, I think I might have been a bit strong in terms of saying that I didn't like it or so. But yes, for me, it was more about the context, in the whole. because the concept itself I found very interesting, as well as fit the world. It was just the theme of it. I think that was my confusion about it. All right then. So I also had another thing here. I just came to thinking about thinking back to the other volumes. So and then here, honestly, they really should have just made a Bleach ripoff with this.
Okay, I mean, I never watched or read Bleach, so I have no idea.
Oh,
the only thing I know that it has is that what, yellow-haired guy with the
orange-haired, yeah.
Yeah, and his name is, what was his name? Ichigo, right? Strawberry.
Yes. Well, yeah, Kurosaki, I think it was called, or
yeah,
I can't remember what his last name now. But no, but I mean, it's very similar premise in the sense of, okay, here's a guy who, just everyday guy, and then he gets this power thrust upon him. He can transform into this warrior in a sense.
This sounds like the opening theme song to a Saturday morning cartoon.
So
just an ordinary guy, then he got a superpower.
Honestly, I mean, I know I've my plate full of mashups.
Yeah.
But honestly, it kind of seemed like a Danny Phantom mashup with Shadowman. So what's called he's a Shadowman. So yeah,
he's a Shadowman. He's a Shadowman.
So,
yeah.
So I had to change it up a bit. I mean, he was a bit older than 14 when he got his powers, and he didn't have both his parents at the time. But I don't know. It's what's called. Yeah, something I came to thinking about because it also showed what I liked about the early volumes of Bleach, which I felt was present here in the first two volumes. It's here's a new monster that's come out, following that's part of these creatures which would fit here, and then it would be this human story taking place simultaneously. So it'll be maybe it's a spirit that's maybe it's the dead lover of someone who's jealous that she's found new love, and he's becoming a jealous creature of some sort. And then it's about then you get cool action scenes, and then it makes, instead of really defeating it through violence, it's eventually he understands that, okay, no, it wasn't, I was at fault here.
Yeah, you want to basically have a monster of the week.
Exactly. I guess
which is fun, but I think a lot of people want to kind of make a serious story out of stuff and actually really delve into the characters and stuff like that. And I think there are just some characters that you don't want to delve deep in. You want to keep them on the surface level and just have them fight really cool monsters.
Well, again, you can have both, I feel. Because the idea for me is that you get because a good monster of the week, I feel, brings out characterization. Take Power Rangers, for example. I mean, again, a lot of them sure is just okay, what can we come up with a cool design? But especially if you consider then, for example, the actual Power Rangers and not the Super Sentai they're based on. There they always have to come up with, okay, what can the monster do that affects, our live action scenes, our refilmed scenes. Oh, well, this is his theme, so maybe he's making everyone, be mean to each other or something. And weren't you mentioning one in the Super Sentai Samurai, where it was one of the characters had depression, so when everyone else was totally disabled by these monsters who put them in depression, that character was immune because they already were depressed or something. Something along those lines.
Maybe. I mean, it's been years, at least 8 years since I watched Super Sentai.
So yeah, I just remember something about that, and I always liked that. It reminded me of the whole "that's my secret, I'm always angry."
Yeah, the only one that I remember is that I was really excited to see how they took the first episode of the Samurai.
Oh, and how they Americanized
Power Rangers, and how they Americanized it, because in the first episode, the monster literally holds a gun to a child's head.
Did you ever see it? Or?
Yeah, I did see it. They completely cut it out. I mean, it was not even close to being in it. I think they cut out the entire hostage situation where the monster had the child. Not even entirely sure anymore. But again, it's so long ago.
All right. But yeah, no, that's just what I mean though. Like you can through Monster of the Week, you can like have the character progress, like character development. So I feel it's like the best of both worlds. Because I agree, if it's just like I think it was when I was a kid, I watched Messenger Z. You ever see that?
Okay.
Really old anime.
No.
But it's cool. Giant robot fighting other giant robots. Good stuff. And there was like a story in the background, like. But honestly, it was just okay. What big monster is he fighting this episode? And it was cool.
Right.
That worked on a superficial level as a kid. Again, there were things going on in the background, but it really was just okay. Oh, this time it's a monster that's underwater, or oh, this time it's a monster with heat powers. But luckily, his robot, is just more versatile and more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and his girlfriend's robot who had like a rocket boobs.
Oh, Jesus.
I just loved it because she actually like her. Because she only has two, so it just like shoots one at a time.
3 tits. Awesome.
Yeah, not 4. That's just gross.
Yeah, just 4. I mean, come on.
That's sick. The movie Paul we were referencing there, by the way. That's
Yeah.
so. I'm fine with any number of boobs.
Yeah, you would be fine with any number of boobs. Speaking of boobs and the reason to be able to touch boobs, let's talk about the love in this chapter.
Good idea.
Because, oh my God, was that forced.
But, again, it is one of those points where it's like, I agree.
But was it?
No, it's not about whether it was or not it was, but did it make sense? Because, just like when they're meeting up and he kind of like, blows it. And not in a good way.
Yeah, God, Jesus.
No, but it's like the whole, here we go. Come on, don't tell me you haven't thought about it a little. And it's brought up because...
That's like what I said as a teenager when I wanted a girl to touch my ding-a-ling.
So, yeah, no, but it's brought up earlier, it's not like if there wasn't the whole thing about, but maybe he could control it because he had a loved one.
Yeah, but that's
if they hadn't had that, then it really feels like, oh, we should put in some romance. So I feel the awkwardness here makes sense because she is literally forcing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I agree, it's still cringy.
Yeah, I like that it was kind of her, like she wasn't forced into doing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was her own idea because she obviously does like him anyways, but it's more like, am I the true love? Is that like...
Yeah, but I thought it was a little bit, I don't know, I thought it would have been better if they would have left it at the, at that point, like when he kind of blew it.
Instead of being brought in later again? Yeah,
because it was brought in, I felt when it came in later again, I was like, oh God. And then that whole, I mean...
Well, yeah, when he does kiss her, that really feels like, oh, look, now he's got it. He's, Jack's got his groove back.
Right. But,
like,
okay, I gotta say, I actually...
Kissing, that's like a very, what's called... I mean, I honestly kind of like it because in terms of the context, like, oh, wow, he finally just, like, did it. He read her mind. But it's, it really felt very, like, classic movie kind of. Like the
podcast
guy comes in.
Podcast listeners, you couldn't see it, but I just rolled my eyes.
No, again, I like it as a cliche. I don't think it's like,
Yeah.
But it's this whole thing, like the man finally comes home or whatever. Oh, honey, you're... And then, just grabs her and, like, that's the whole, like, holding her while, she's, like, hanging there, kissing...
Hanging there? Okay, Humphrey, you've been watching too many movies, or I guess too many cartoons.
Well, I watched La La Land recently, so...
Yeah, okay. Well, I gotta say one thing I thought was also just really awkward and weird. It's just that whole thing about, like... I don't know, I just, like... It felt very much like that South Park thing, like, butt sex. You use lube for butt sex. And lube is made out of, and just kind of doing all this. It felt like that whole thing when they was having that fight there at the end. It was like, love, she loved me, I feel it. And then it's like, I finally know what to do with the sight. I was like, what? And then some sort of light happens, and it's just like...
Yeah, and it gave him power to, like, what's called himself go between dead side and the
which is kind of like, okay, so love did this, maybe, or what?
Well, that's
I
the
don't
thing.
know.
The word love itself is kind of cringy these days. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's like even movies where it like fits, like, well, like Princess and the Frog. If we want to keep to like a Black New Orleans theme,
Mm.
I mean, as much as it fits thematically and like pacing wise, like near the end of the scene when Tiana like confronts what's called Dr. Facilier.
Mm.
So he didn't have everything he wanted, but he had love.
Yeah.
It's like I get it. It's definitely it's all true, but somehow I think just because it's so common through all media,
Mm-hmm.
it simply has lost.
Because love is the most important thing in the world.
Yeah, but it just lost its power in that sense. The word itself. I mean, it's kind of like I think it was Nostalgia Chick who had this great thing about I think when she reviewed Cinderella 2 or 3. So it was some kind of thing about like because it's another concept about you have to marry for love. I was just kind of like, you get that, kids? Have you understood it yet? So you gotta marry for love. Don't you motherfucking dare do anything else. No, but like it's like really like get it. It's like we really want to force you this, and again, it's a good theme, but it's just so overused. Which honestly is kind of what I liked about her thoughts here, where it's like, well, if I have to, it's kind of more like she's not that she's taking advantage of the situation, but it's more like, well, I have been thinking about it. Now I actually have a reason to, lay with him.
Lay with him?
I don't know.
Humphrey,
I'm not used to these
you need
words.
to,
I'm not
dude,
used
you need
I don't know
to
how
step
the
up your
kids-
game.
I don't know how
You
the
need to
kids
step up your
say.
game.
How do kids say
The
these
kids
days?
say, the kids say, no.
Well, the not kids.
Wow, Humphrey, you,
Yeah, it's getting weird now.
yeah.
So, but since we're weird anyways right now, no, but just
Let's get weirder.
No, but just something, because obviously, we don't want to do like panel by panel analysis, even though that could also be interesting. But yeah, definitely not for this one really. But I was just thinking because I'm on the page where she's saying the whole thing like I'm not totally repulsive, am I? But I just really find that third panel very interesting with because again, just in terms of a choice here as an artist, and I'm not sure if it's the writer's idea or what. But just the whole framing there, her eyes are cut off and we just focus on her lips. Like, why?
Wait, which one are you talking about?
Page 51.
Oh, you're up there. I thought you were at the bottom one.
Oh, yeah, no, it's the
Let's
first,
see. 51. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Again, this isn't like critique or anything, but what does it say, like, with the way that it's being portrayed here? Because I thought maybe I could be your Sandria.
Yeah.
But, we're not, like, into the window of the soul, her eyes. You're not, like, seeing, like, his reflection in her eyes or anything.
All right, Humphrey, I'm going to have to explain to you some things about sex.
Good night, everybody.
So when a man loves a woman or not, so I think this is a very intimate and very kind of like sexual kind of frame. I mean, she has some very voluptuous lips. And as you can see with Jack, when they're talking, you can see that in the first panel of that page, he's looking at her eyes. Then they're kind of like talking about it. They're talking about like, well, I'm not like so repulsive and, okay, kind of flirty, getting close to each other. He's starting to look down at her lips because then you get like this feeling inside you. You're looking at those lips and they're kind of like a little thick there and you're kind of like, oh, you can kind of taste it. And then you're getting closer and closer and just focusing on the lips. And then you're getting closer and then you turn away just like Jack does in the fourth panel.
Yeah, no, I get it. So I'm sorry if it's what's called too obvious. But I don't know. You said something in here specifically, mostly because again we tend to like to look at characters' faces. So to just have it specifically cut off like that, I don't know. Again, you're absolutely
that's
right.
That's a very kind of how would you say, like a elementary way of looking at it. Because basically you're being told. You're basically just following the rules without thinking about why the rules exist. So you're not the kind of like, you're not thinking about it in the way of, okay, now he broke the rules. Why is he breaking the rules? You're just thinking like, well, he's breaking the rules. That's wrong, right? Because, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, we do want to look into the eyes of people. But this makes us kind of feel more intimate because at least some of us on this podcast have had that situation where, you know, you're kind of like looking at those lips and you're just like, this is what you feel. You have this kind of, you're getting closer and you're kind of looking at the target. You know, you want to kiss the person. Shut up,
Humphrey. What are you, pickup artist?
No, it's not about like that. It is a target. It's literally the target. That's where you want to put your lips. It's a target. You're looking at the mouth of the woman that you want to kiss. And because you don't want to miss, you look at the target. So anyway. So that's the idea here. You know, it just you focus on what is important, and if you break the whole thing about the eyes, just like with the fourth panel, you didn't talk about the fourth panel where Jack is literally averting his eyes from the viewer.
Yeah, no, but that I feel is still like to me that's you're showing like most of it in the sense, as well as being a relative close up. So we have the surprise of her leaving. You know, in the next one.
Yeah, but I mean...
But what I mean is, like for me, it's just the whole... Because it could so easily be framed if we take the third panel and we just, you know, assume the artist had drawn her whole face.
Yeah.
We just drag it down and it would have read just as easily, in a sense.
No, it wouldn't have. That's the thing. It's not the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. No, but I mean, it still would have worked, but this is definitely a better choice.
No, it wouldn't have worked because then we're looking at her eyes. And then we're going to be thinking that this dude is looking at his eyes, at her eyes. It's not like that. He's focusing on the lips, so we should also focus on the lips.
Yeah, no, this is definitely the better choice. But it still would have flown. Like the page, like the flow of the page would still have worked. What I'm just saying is I guess like that there was a very specific choice made here.
Yeah, I don't think it would have flown though.
So
I don't think it would have been the same feel.
Let me get into Photoshop and recreate the third panel.
Well, let's do that then.
No, I didn't mean for this to be like, I just wanted to say it and I wanted you to agree with me and then we left it at that.
Well, that's not how I am, Humphrey.
Yeah, I know. No, unfortunately.
No. I want to call out to all the listeners. Why don't you write to Humphrey at Humphrey on Twitter and tell him how wrong he is, how you like looking at voluptuous lips in comics.
So
because we all do.
Yeah, oh no, definitely. So, and with our luck, probably that's the one thing that will get some Twitter attention.
Hey, we got some pretty nice Twitter attention lately.
Oh yeah, let's go. So shout out to, I don't have it up here, Michael, was it?
Yeah, shout out to Michael and Brian, who have contacted us on Twitter. It's really nice of you guys. You said some really nice words for us, and yeah, keep listening, guys. It's
you rock.
Really nice to hear from you. All right, so I think did we cover everything? We covered the
I think so, and more.
Lips, the confusing storytelling.
Yeah, no, and you went on the art immediately. I usually put that as the last point on my little bullet list.
Well, because again, and I feel kind of bad about it, but it's one of those things. It's typical, you know. You do usually always mention the bad things, and you mention it when it's really, really good. So I had to mention it when it was really, really good. But yeah, it's good that you always have it down that we don't forget to talk about the art when it is just like mediocre. You know what I mean? Like when it's in that.
Yeah, because we didn't mention last volume.
Oh, we didn't. Okay.
Yeah, no, we didn't bring it up. But there was a few different artists at times, but we didn't really bring it up in that sense because it wasn't really awful. It wasn't really different. And also had some of the old artists we've seen before, like Clayton Henry for issue 3, I think it was. Yeah. So, it's kind of like, yeah. All right, cool. But let's just give a shout out to Roberto de la Torre, so the artist on this one.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice read.
So, yes, well, I had to check in which one it was.
Well, I mean, the colorist would have done a lot of the coloring job, right?
That's true. I did write to props to him and the colorists. So, yeah. You'll have to put your own name in there, colorists.
Wait, is the colorist not...
Yeah, no,
here we go.
David Barron.
David Barron and John
Oh, yeah, it's in
Rauch.
the top there, too. Wow, nice.
Yeah. So well done. I really enjoyed that color, even though it was a little bit confusing.
All right. But then he has one last thing in terms of not with this volume specifically, but we only have this is the last what's called actual Shadowman volume.
Yep, I read it at the bottom.
So yeah, exactly. It's because now it's gonna be a new mini-series sort of thing coming afterwards. So that's kind of gonna like tie up loose ends. And then after that, well, we'll discuss it when we get to that one. So, but I don't know, just kind of, how do you feel like overall, yes, do you feel it deserves to kind of, what's called, that the series kind of deserves to kind of become like this now, kind of being quickly wrapped up in a sense?
No, I mean, you could have done so much amazing stuff with this still. And again, I really like the idea that it could have been like a Monster of the Week kind of thing, but I mean, I know it's not going to be. I mean, again, it says here Shadowman End Times, so I'm assuming something big is going to happen now.
So yeah, again, it'll be a while till we get there. But all right then, yeah, no, I just was curious about that part. So yeah, this is the last volume of the actual Shadowman run. All right. Well, thanks for joining me again, Chris.
Of course, always happy to do it.
That was the 26th episode of Hardcast, detailing Shadowman Volume 4. For more content from me and Chris, follow us on Twitter at Humphrey_Aram and at Christian D. Claus. You can subscribe to us on iTunes or listen to us directly on valianthardcast.podbean.com. And remember to like us on facebook.com/valianthardcast. Catch us later for our next episode,